What's up? You got your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe, cause today we're gonna be talking about the Assimilator. What had happened was, so the year was the late 2000s, and a Canadian rapper told Jay-Z and Lil Wayne to move out the space as he bogarted his way into the scene with a magical hit song called you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, best I ever had, which was a dope song, but trash video? Say it ain't so, Drake. Say it ain't so. Also in the late 2000s, Chris Rock was able to make everybody come together as one and sit down in their living room just to find out that everybody loves, hates Chris. And in the 2000s, Family Guy, with characters such as Peter, Meg, Stewie, and even Quagmire, took over The Simpsons as America's favorite cartoon. Well, sort of. But yes, folks, the 2000s was some trend-setting times. But you know what was really trend-setting? Dolls. Yep, those creepy little dolls. Bedroom producers were finally free, and they were purchasing every kind of doll you can imagine. Cheap ones, expensive ones, cracked ones, whack ones. They were buying everything. And to tell you the truth, for music production, this was a great time. But even with the doll craze at an all-time high, something started a brewing. Something was going on in the underground. In the mid-2000s, during the doll revolution, an underground community was forming. A community of musicians and gearheads that remembered and loved the old modulars back in the 70s and wanted to bring them back. Now, these things were huge, bigger than Galactus. So how could they bring these things back? We're in the DAW era now. Folks are not gonna bring these big contraptions in a studio or on stage with them. But if they break it down to something that could fit nicely on your desk, now we're talking. And just like that, EURORACK was back. Dieter Dorfer, along with Bob Williams, Steve Gay, a couple guys, had their hand in the mid-90s of rejuvenating the modular synthesizer scene. And now, in the 2000s, we were here. The modular craze was back again. It's kind of like Teletubbies. Remember the Teletubby craze of the late 90s? Everybody wanted a Teletubby. People was mortgaging their homes with Teletubbies. Seriously, you could walk over to the nearest dealership, look at a brand new Porsche, and the dealer would tell you, yeah, it's gonna be $75,000. And you'll look at the dealer with a grin on your face and pull out a Teletubby from the bag. You'd show it to the dealer and the dealer would hand you the keys and then say, enjoy your Porsche. That's how big Teletubbies were in the early 2000s. Enthusiasts that loved the old school modular synthesizers were foaming from the mouths at these new ones. All kind of modulars was being built. You had filters being built. You had effects modulars being built. Sequencers being built. Just everything you could imagine. So Dave Rossum, creator of the SP12, SP12 Turbo, SP1200, SP1200 Reissue Black, after putting out some products with creative technologies, decided to take a break from the music production space. And he didn't really put anything out for a couple years. But in 2018, ASSIMIL8OR decided to release one of the first sampler modules in EURORACK ever built, and that was the ASSIMIL8OR. You're getting 24 bits with an internal processing of up to 32 bits. And you're getting sample rates from 48 kilohertz to 96 kilohertz to 192 kilohertz. Wow! The ASSIMIL8OR has 8 inputs and outputs, and it's multi-timbral, so you can have 8 mono channels and up to 4 stereo channels. You get one-shot or gated sample playback with variable attack and release. You get real-time CV control and bit depth and real-time CV control and aliasing, basically from none to lots. Each of the 8 channels can have up to 8 samples assigned to them. Amazing! You're getting extensive sampling, manipulation, and looping capabilities. You're getting DC coupling through the signal path for sampling control voltages. And ladies and gentlemen, they even threw in an SD slot in the front. Ladies and gentlemen, when ASSIMIL8OR released the ASSIMIL8OR, a good number of folks brought it. That's one thing about EURORACK. If you make something cool, folks will buy it. And they don't care who you are. They don't care if you have a big company. They don't even care sometimes if you know what you're really doing. If you bring something new and fresh to the scene, folks will give it a chance. Now, this EURORACK stuff was a little different from the old school modular synthesizers. Instead of being 5 units in height and as big as a project building, these joints were a little bit more compact. It was 3 units in height. So, you could fit them on your desk. That was a big difference. And I know some people's like, it still looks like the refrigerator appliance section at Home Depot. Just a bunch of cabinets all over the place. But to tell you the truth, EURORACK is really convenient. Like, let's say if you got a bunch of gear all over the place, like you got keyboards, samplers, groove boxes, you might have a sampler and really love the sampling engine, but hate the sequencer. But you can't do nothing about it. You gotta buy the whole sampler. Well, in EURORACK, you don't really have to do all that. Since you're kind of building everything, if there's a sequencer that you don't like, all you gotta do is just change that specific part. You know what I'm saying? Just return that sequencer module and put in a new one. In a way, it's really convenient. It's a good reason to get a EURORACK. It's like having a good reason for calling off from work. It's kind of like you wake up one day, you hear the birds chirping, you see the squirrels running around, the sun is out, and you just don't feel like going to work. So you don't. So you sit down in your living room, chill, and just go on a what had happened was binge. But then, the next day when you go to work, your boss sees you and he's like, "Oh, hey, Bill, why didn't you come to work yesterday?" And you tell him, "I just didn't feel like it." And he goes, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I just didn't feel like it." Like, oh, really? Okay, well, we don't feel like paying you anymore." And your boss hands you the pink slip and kicks you out the door. But let's rewind for a second. You wake up in the morning, it's a sunny day, the birds are chirping, the squirrels running around, and you just don't feel like going to work today. So the next day you go to work and your boss asks you, "Hey, Bill, why didn't you come to work yesterday?" And you tell him, "Coming to work, I was passing by the theater. The musical Cats, that theater? And there was an old lady and she tripped and hurt her ankle. So I rushed her to the hospital and just made sure she was safe and okay while she was there because she needed help doing everything." And your boss will look at you, scratch his head and say, "You know what, Bill? You're a great guy." You always have to have a reason. So the workflow of the assimilator is pretty simple. It might look confusing at first glance with all these input channels to the left and everything like that. It might look kind of crazy, but just think of them as one row of options, meaning one channel, you can use it as a gate or trigger and basically use CV, A, B, or C. There's really not that much menu diving on the unit since all the buttons are on the face panel of the unit. If you want to pitch something up, just hit the pitch button and pitch it up. You can load a sample in by putting in the memory card and pressing load and push the button of the channel you want to assign it to. But a really dope and unique feature on the assimilator is the phase modulation feature. Now, with this feature, you could have one sample on, let's say, channel 1, another sample on channel 2, link them together, and let's say the first sample on channel 1 could be a guitar sound, and the sample on channel 2 can be a Michael Jackson "I Wanna Rock With You" acapella. Seriously, it could be the acapella of the song, and when you link them together and press the phase modulation button, the frequencies of the Michael Jackson acapella will start manipulating the guitar sample. So you can turn the volume off on the Michael Jackson acapella and your guitar sample will be going It's crazy. Some folks didn't like the fact that the assimilator didn't have a sequencer or that many effects, but the assimilator did have a looper so that you can loop your sound or sounds the way you wanted to, but some folks still wanted a sequencer. So when the assimilator came out, they priced it at $1,000. And it's up there in price, no doubt, but folks didn't care. And the EURORACK community is pretty supportive to new gear. I mean, seriously, a guy in his basement could make a filter or something like that, could just make a little filter module, go put it on the market for like $300-400, and folks will buy it. Just, if anything, just to test it out and see what it can do. So as the EURORACK community grows, it's nice to see some samplers in the mix. So with its phase modulation, SD card capabilities, and 192 kilohertz, the assimilator did bring something new to the table in the sampling modular space. So that's the assimilator. What had happened was... So this is your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe. And I'm signing off.